From the Department of English, Netaji Nagar College, I welcome you all to this session in which I would like to give you a brief critical summary on the poem Enterprise by Nissim Ezekiel. Now to start with, I would like to start with a very brief introduction to the poet. Nissim Ezekiel is a Bombay-based Jewish Indian poet writing in English who is often hailed as the father of modern English poetry, modern Indian English poetry in the post-World War II era. His span is from 1924 to 2004. He is a poet, a playwright, a visual art critic, an editor as well as an actor connected with the theatre. Now, Enterprise is a very important poem in the sense it draws much critical acclaim for the poet. And to talk about the general poetic ideas that Ezekiel deals with in his poems, I would like to mention that during his early poetic career, he was highly influenced by modern English poets like T.S. Eliot, W.H. Auden, W.B. Yeats and Ezra Pound. And if you read the poems of these great poets, you will know that all these poets more or less talk about the existential crisis, the ontological crisis of a modern man in the urban cityscape, in the complicated, claustrophobic, mechanical urban cityscape. And quite similarly, Ezekiel also talks about the frustration and the failure of modern man in a complicated city-state or polis. That is, in a very complex urban space or the polis. He talks about how humans struggle and get frustrated in their journey as they want to cope with this urban space. Now, this is a very common theme that we note in Ezekiel's work. Some other general themes that Ezekiel deals with in his poems include love, a sense of longing, a sense of deprivation, and also art. He also deals with creativity. And it is quite noted in the poems of Ezekiel that he talks about a lack of commitment. He talks about faithlessness, and he talks about the need for acquiring faithfulness. Okay, now this particular poem Enterprise is a narrative, metaphorical, didactic poem. It is written in 6 stanzas of 5 lines each, and the title is very suggestive. If the title of the poem had not been Enterprise, quote unquote Enterprise, there's every possibility we would have interpreted the poem in some other way. Now, this title is at the same time metaphorical. I will come to that point later on. Now, you can interpret the title on multiple levels because it has got vast connotations. If I consider a modern pragmatic sense, in the modern pragmatic sense, I can think about a business enterprise. We can think about, in the post-colonial context, we can think about a political enterprise where maybe a nation is dreaming or is aspiring for emancipation or political freedom from some foreign rule or under some Eurocentric domination, aspiring for some political freedom for the nation. This can also be a spiritual enterprise, which is quite noted in this particular poem, because here the poet has given the motive of a pilgrimage, a spiritual journey, and in this, while he has talked about this pilgrimage, he has also given hint that this pilgrimage basically metaphorically it presents the universal human condition in which humans undertake a venture, a journey in their life, but however, as they progress with it, they get entangled in many petty issues, in practical problems, in pressures, and in different kinds of, in different minor petty things, and in many confusions, which ultimately make their enterprise a complete mess, and they cannot progress and they cannot cope with that anymore. This is something very important to note. So this is a metaphorical enterprise because it basically it talks about the universal human condition in life. As they want to undertake this journey in life, they also get frustrated, they also meet with failures, and that's quite obvious. Now, we find in the very first stage of this enterprise, to broadly speak, what is an enterprise? An enterprise is basically a venture, a very complex, a bold venture that you undertake with some specific goal in mind. If I consider the enterprise in this particular context, this is a spiritual enterprise. So at the very core of this enterprise is the very idea of having a spiritual upliftment or salvation. That is, at the end of the enterprise, at the end of this pilgrimage, it is quite expected that the pilgrims who have started with the journey, they will be finally experiencing some kind of spiritual upliftment or self-evolution. Why only in this context? This is perhaps true for all enterprises. That is, at the end of it, you want some upliftment, you want some development on your part. With this very exalted idea, with this very dignified and sanctimonious ideal, these group of pilgrims coming from the different strata of the society, from the different sections of the society, they had gathered and they had decided to undertake this journey. Okay, now initially they have exalted ideals in their mind, and they are all fresh in their mind, and they are all ready to combat the challenges that are about to come on their path as impediments. They are all aware that some challenges they are going to face, and they are much prepared to combat all those challenges. Now, this is the initial stage of the journey until they will meet the sun. Now, sun over here is definitely metaphorical, because sun metaphorically represents truth, knowledge, reality. It even represents nature and God or divinity. Okay, now this sun is definitely illuminating the stage of their journey, this particular stage of exploration on the part of the pilgrims. But at the same time, you have to understand that the sun is also incinerating or destroying the pilgrims. Why? Because this particular sun, which is a very symbol of knowledge, which is a very symbol of reality, of nature, and of spiritual awakening, this sun is also incinerating the pilgrims by making them subject to some critical scrutiny, because this sun is going to question them later on regarding what is the objective, what is the real motive behind undertaking this enterprise or undertaking this venture, right? And we move gradually to the next stage of this journey. Initially they are very enthusiastic, and this enthused group of pilgrims, they are ready to explore, they are ready to combat all challenges, and that's why the poet has said, the sun beat down to match our rage. So as if their rage is getting equated with the sun's rage, with the sun's with the sun's power, because they are equally prepared to combat these challenges. They move on to the next stage of the journey, where they noted, we stood it very well, I thought, observed and put down copious notes on things the peasants sold and bought, the way of serpents and of goats, the cities where a sage, 3 cities where a sage had taught. Now, gradually we note that unconsciously this group of enthused pilgrims are getting involved in petty, materialistic activities which are having in the long run no good impact on them. Rather, these activities are wasting their invaluable time, and they are not aware of it. They started with some exalted ideals in their mind. They started with some sanctimonious goal, with some dignified idea in their mind. But as they are progressing with this enterprise, as they are progressing with this journey, they are unconsciously getting entangled with very minor, with very petty, with very trivial and mundane activities of daily life, which is basically wasting their invaluable time. And some of these activities are like taking copious notes on things the peasants sold and bought, and also taking notes on which are the ways in which the serpents have gone and in which the goats have gone. And they are also taking notes on the names of the cities, on the 3 cities where the sages have gone to preach. This is interesting to note that these group of pilgrims are not interested much to acquire knowledge about the wisdom of the sage, or what the sage had taught, or what the sage had preached. Rather, they are interested to take note on the different cities where the sage had gone to preach. And this taking copious notes on multiple things, this metaphorically refers to the multiple religious ideas, multiple religious commentaries that are circulated in and around the world. Because in this context, I would like to mention that Ezekiel is against the sectarian policy. He is more in favor of secularism, and he believes in the idea that in order to gain spiritual salvation, in order to attain spiritual salvation or some form of sublime spiritual purification, it is not necessary on our part to follow any particular religious dogma or doctrine. He is in favor of secularism in that sense. And metaphorically, taking down copious notes refers to this multiple religious commentaries that are circulated in and around the world. And the poet is also talking about the three cities where the sage had taught, which again metaphorically or symbolically refers to the three wings or to the three paths of Western spiritual philosophy. To name them, they are Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam. Right now, gradually the pilgrims are moving to the next stage of their journey, and as they are progressing with this particular stage, they can realize that they are no more enthused as they were when they embarked on the journey. Gradually their enthusiasm is waning because they are more engrossed in tackling practical issues and confusions, practical problems. And the journey is getting more critical, rather the challenges are getting more critical, because the poet is saying, but when the differences arose on how to cross a desert patch, here he is referring to the theoreticians who differ from one another, who differ in their ideology, who differ in their philosophy, in their principles. And the poet is referring to them and is saying that even among the pilgrims, differences arose on how to cross a desert patch. Desert patch symbolically refers to the hardships of life, as we the humans in the urban cityscape, according to the poet, we do not have this spiritualism in us, and as we are undertaking this journey, we realize at the same time that we cannot we cannot adhere to the principle with which we have started with the journey, because we lose the very essence, the very objective of the journey while getting involved with practical issues and confusions and problems. Okay, now we definitely face some form of disillusionment, and that's quite obvious. Here the pilgrims started with some sanctimonious ideal, but gradually they realized that differences are arising among them, and they cannot take an unanimous decision regarding how to cross the desert patch. Here desert patch, as I told you, is referring to the hardships of life, to the sufferings of life, to different impediments. Here it's a natural impediment. They have to cross a desert patch, and then they are facing more challenges, and they also face some fear, and this fear is done in the spirit with which they had started with the enterprise, because they will lose a very close friend who is known for his commendable prose writing. His prose writing style is quite commendable, and they will be losing this friend. Now, in which sense the loss is, it is not clearly mentioned in this particular poem, in this stanza. This loss can be in the form of death. I think it's death. This loss can be in the form of differences that are arising, in the form of detachment. Now, I want to focus on this factor of death, because in order to undergo the process of self-examining, because that's the initial objective of the enterprise, that you at the end of the enterprise will be having some kind of spiritual upliftment, some kind of spiritual evolution and soul purification. For that you need to go within, and we will come to this idea later on, particularly in the last stanza of the poem, where the poet has talked about going within and exploring how to delve within yourself and explore all the multiple facets of your soul. Right now, as the poet is saying that we lost a friend whose stylish prose was quite the best of all our batch. A shadow falls on us and grows. Now, I would like to focus on two ideas over here. Firstly, the poet is talking about death in some form, because the process of self-examining definitely will lead you to some form of death, because you will be facing some questions. These questions can be unnerving, and it may disturb your settled zone, it may disturb your comfort zone, and this is also a form of death. But it's very important to confront this form of death, because if you don't confront it, you will not be able to go through this process, you will not be able to undergo this process of self purification. Self examining will definitely lead you to some form of death. And another idea which the poet wants to focus on, I think, is poetic exploration, rediscovery of the poetic voice or the poetic logos. This group of pilgrims, they cannot connect with the poet's voice, and since they cannot connect with the poet's voice, they are alienated. These alienated group of pilgrims, they cannot stay together. They are differing in their ideology, they are differing in their principles, they are getting detached, and they cannot take unanimous decision on how to combat the physical challenges. And this is definitely posing threat to their enterprise for being a successful one, right? Gradually we move on to the next stage of the enterprise. Another phase was reached when we were twice attacked and lost our way. A section claimed its liberty to leave the group. I tried to pray. Our leader said he smelt the sea. So here the challenges are getting even more critical, because so far we have noted that the problems were there within. The problems were there among the different group of pilgrims or the pilgrims, because they were differing from each other. But now the threats are coming from outside at the same time. Plunderers are attacking them, and they do not have the strength to combat the plunderers, because they are getting detached from each other. They do not have that solidarity with which they have started with the enterprise. And the plunderers are attacking, and they are losing their way. And we also note a group of dissenters coming out, who are differing from the other pilgrims. And the poet is saying, I try to pray, because he is still adhering to the original ideal with which he started with the enterprise. So here the poet is definitely segregated from them, because he is still adhering to this ideal. Although the pilgrims have moved apart, they have fallen apart, he is still adhering to this ideal. And this term, I pray, that is, I try to pray, this definitely is a testimony to that. And our leader said he smelt the sea. So there was a leader of the group of pilgrims who said he smelt the sea. Sea over here is a metaphorical expression, as well as it's an ironical expression, because while the sea refers to the sea of knowledge, because this group leader wants to tell them that knowledge is very near. We are in close proximity to the knowledge which we aspire to gain. And at the same time, the sea is also referring to the vast unknown. So it is an ironical commentary that the sea on one hand is referring to the vast sea of knowledge, and on the other hand it is also referring to the vast unknown. So here lies the irony, and both are unfathomable, right? And our leader said he smelt the sea. But whether he actually smelled the sea or not, the group of pilgrims are not much interested to judge or to justify, because they are taking this enterprise. This is important to note. They are taking this enterprise more or less like a physical journey. They cannot touch the psychic sense or the psychic level on which in which this particular journey, this particular enterprise is operating. This enterprise they are taking as a mere physical journey, and they consider it to just test their physical endurance, their corporeal endurance, by exposing them to the trials and the rigors of the journey. But what the poet wants to highlight is the psychic level on which this particular enterprise is operating, right? And this is what the leader of this group will be saying, that he is smelling the sea. That means he is having a close proximity to knowledge. He's trying to keep the spirits of these pilgrims high. And we noticed nothing. This is the fifth stage. This is the next stage of this enterprise. I am the fifth stanza. We noticed nothing as we went, a straggling crowd of little hope, ignoring what the thunder meant. Deprived of common needs like soap, some were broken, some merely bent. So here we find a reference to T.S. Eliot's Wasteland in the expression what the thunder meant. Now this thunder can refer to the divine premonition or some form of message coming from divinity, that it may refer to this message that is coming from the Almighty, and this message is directed to this group of pilgrims, as if this message wants to make them realize the importance of understanding the core knowledge, the importance of realizing the very essence of the enterprise. This particular expression, what the thunder meant, can even refer to the necessity of realizing and the necessity of generating benevolent human emotions like love, like pity, mercy, and sympathy, empathy for others, so that if you generate these ideas, if you generate these sensibilities, this finer human emotions within yourself, you can stop this urban space to get further debased, to get further to go through the process of decadence. You can stop that, but for that you need to go through a process of self-examining. It is only through a process of self-examining and self-preservation you can have the spiritual upliftment, and you can generate within yourself these finer human sensibilities and human emotions, which are very important to stop the nation or the urban space to go through further decadence. Okay, so this is what the poet meant by what the thunder meant, and this is towards the far end of the journey. The group of pilgrims who were alienated, but some people were still, some of the alienated pilgrims were still, they still adhered to that venture, and they wanted to undertake that journey, although they were tired, although they were frustrated, although they accepted failures in different forms, still they wanted to undertake the journey. But finally, when they felt that they are bereft of all hope, they are frustrated, and they appeared to be merely a struggling crowd with little hope remaining in them. This is definitely ironical. Something started with lofty ideals, with some purposefulness, and ultimately it is ending in some kind of purposelessness, and this is where the irony lies. Ignoring what the thunder meant. So this divine premonition will be just nullified, because they will not be paying any heed to this call of the thunder, to this call of divinity, to this message that Almighty was directing towards them. And ignoring what the thunder meant, deprived of common needs like soap. Here, while soap metaphorically refers to the petty, to the trivial, to the very mundane, materialistic needs, which are separating them from one another, this soap also refers to the metaphor of cleansing, that is cleansing your own soul, cleansing your inner self, which is very important for experiencing the spiritual evolution and spiritual upliftment, which is the original idea with which you started with the enterprise. And finally, they will note that these pilgrims will note that some were broken and some merely bent, because they are absolutely they are frustrated. And here lies the very last stage of this enterprise, when finally we reached the place. We hardly know why we were there. The trip had darkened every face. Our deeds were neither great nor rare. Home is where we have to gather grace. So this is the final stage of the enterprise. It is replete with irony, because something started with lofty ideas, something started with exalted, some kind of an exalted philosophy, but it is ending with a sense of purposelessness and frustration, indicated by the expression darkened every face. So their faces are all darkened, because it's the darkness of purposelessness. And they left their home in the pursuit of undertaking this journey, but the poet is saying that it is the home where you have to gather the grace. Now this home, this expression home, is definitely ambivalent, because at the same time it has got multiple connotations. It is ambivalent because I'm explaining this point. While this home refers to the homeland, this home also refers to the inner self, because as I told you, you need to delve within, deeper down within, in order to go through this process of self-purification and soul search. And through this process of self-examining and soul search, through this process of self-inquiry, you will be able to experience some form of spiritual salvation and evolution. So this is the home that the poet is talking about. But it is ambivalent in the sense the poet is also talking about another home. And this home is referring to the hopeless illusion once again, because this home is referring to again the decadent polis, which the poet criticized initially. But at the same time, he has a close affinity towards that. So he's criticizing this polis on one hand, but at the same time, he has a close affinity towards that. And so there's a question, he ends with a question. Rather, we can solve this question, or he places this question before us to solve, that where grace is to be found, whether this grace is to be found within, or whether this grace is to be noted in identifying ourselves with this particular object world. With this particular object world, with this particular decadent polis, we have to identify ourselves. So this home has got multiple meanings. While this home refers to the homeland, in this context India, the nation, this home also refers to the inner self, that is to which you have to go to, which you have to explore in order to go through this process, in order to experience this form of spiritual evolution. And this home is also referring to this decadent polis once again, which the poet has criticized also. So he also has a very close affinity to this decadent polis. So this is basically what the poem is all about. And as I told you, this poem is a metaphor for the journey of life that humans undertake, and often get frustrated and often fail to reach their ultimate goal, because they get involved in many petty issues and confusions. Some very important questions that are possible from this text are from this particular poem. Definitely one on allegory, because the entire poem is allegorical. It talks about an allegorical journey. This is one very important question that is possible. Another question that is possible from this poem is on Ezekiel's writing style. The tone of the poem is very modern, unrestrained tone, yet it is not discursive. This is important to note, that it is not discursive, but it is having a very modern, unrestrained kind of a tone. It has a very lucid, conversational kind of a style. And this is Ezekiel's writing style. It has got a modernist approach. And another very important question that can come is justifying the title. Now, as I told you that the title has vast connotations. It is a very suggestive kind of a title. Enterprise, broadly speaking, is a complex venture, is a bold venture that you undertake. And while undertaking this bold venture, you definitely have as you embark on this bold venture, you definitely have some goal in your mind, some specific objective in your mind. And it is interesting to note that when the pilgrims will be reaching their final destination, they have lost track whether this destination is what they desired for. And here lies the irony. And where lies the irony in this poem? This also can be framed as a question, that treatment of irony in the poem, in Nissim Ezekiel's poem, Enterprise. Okay, so this is all about the poem. We can discuss on some other questions later on. Thank you for today.